Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Windup. My name is Gavin, and I'm also known as the Circus Monkey. And with me today, of course, is Mr. Nick Lombardi. Nick, how are we doing today?
I am doing great, Gavin. I hope you are as well. And guys, we are back. Oh, it feels so good. I know we missed you guys last week. Me and Gavin were both doing some side things. We were not able to be on the show, but we're here now, here to make it up for you. I know we missed just the tail end of the season, but we have so many amazing things to talk about, including an insane wild card series games that, Gavin, overall, I have to tell you, it was fun. I know it's not something I want every year, but it's fun. I was on the edge of my seat for a lot of games, man.
It was a good wild card series, and in a weird year like we've had, this is the year I'm okay with doing something unusual. I think we've talked about a lot of things, the extra inning rules, the DH, those types of things that we wouldn't traditionally be a fan of. In a season such as this, makes sense to at least attempt them. And while doing the expanded wild card did allow my team, the Brewers, into the postseason, they definitely didn't deserve it. So hopefully going forward, I hope not to see it again. But more baseball this year is never a bad thing. And the great part is adding the additional games and the additional teams still kept the traditional timeline for a MLB playoff time. And so we aren't really we're gaining more and losing less, which is a great thing, right? So I'm all for it in that sense. I'm excited to have as much baseball as possible. As you know me, that's my love, is my baseball. So. But yeah, we did have some great games, man. It was some fun stuff to watch and some major upsets when you really think about it.
Absolutely. And real quick, Gavin, as we come in here, I want to say thank you to everybody who's watching us right now on Facebook Live. I want to thank everyone who's watching us right now on YouTube and everyone who's watching us right now on Twitch. If you haven't followed us yet on Twitch, guys, I encourage you, hop over to Twitch, get over to official_GCSN. Again, that's official_GCSN. Give us a follow there and view us on there. We'd really appreciate it. And for all the new people who are coming on, again, I'm Nick. This is Gavin. We're just having a great time talking some baseball, man.
Yeah, so let's jump into it a little bit. But we should before. I know we talked a little bit about off air. We want to send out our condolences to the Gibson family.
Absolutely.
MLB legend Bob Gibson did pass away this week. And Nick and I were talking about before the show. If you know baseball, you know the name Bob Gibson. You know he's an all-time great. You knew he's a Hall of Famer. But then we dug in a little bit deeper, and yes, he's a little bit before both of our time frames. You and I come from different decades, but he's a little bit before both of our time. So let's take a look at what he did in the major leagues. He's a Hall of Famer, as we mentioned. He's an MVP, a 2-time Cy Young winner, a 9-time Gold Glove winner. He won 2 World Series and was the MVP of both World Series that he and this team won. He had a 17-year career, and he posted a 2.91 career ERA over those 17 years.
Some more
incredible. And you have some other things that I had forgotten to write down as well.
No, so you got here a 9-time All-Star. The guy led the National League in wins in 1970, was the MLB ERA leader in 1968, a National League strikeout leader, pitched a no-hitter. When you think of what a pitcher, what you want to succeed when you go play Major League Baseball, it seems like the guy just checked all the boxes, Gavin.
Absolutely, and a true legend of all time. Again, condolences to his family, to the Cardinals organization, everyone involved, everybody that knew the guy, and so we'll move from a somber note back into the highlights of everything. Hey, Heather, how are you? Thanks again for joining in. I know we saw you yesterday. And of course, last week, David, of course, loving baseball playoffs. Absolutely. It's my favorite time of the year as well. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the National League. Let's start there. Let's talk St. Louis versus San Diego. St. Louis could not make it happen against San Diego. San Diego wins the 3-game series, 2-1. It was a 7-4 victory for St. Louis, followed by back-to-back wins of 11-9 and 4-0 San Diego. St. Louis just could not hold up with the bats of San Diego in those next 2 games.
No, they really could not, especially when you have Mr. Fernando Tatis Jr. going 4-4-4 on his average with 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. They were just explosive. I believe the stat, and maybe I'm saying this wrong, but wasn't it him, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name now. I'm feeling terrible. Was it Miles? Or I'm trying to remember his name right now. I feel stupid. Who is the because I knew the 2 of them, they both hit 2 home runs. They're the second duo to do that since Ruth and Gehrig. I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was.
I don't remember. There was
Myers.
Myers was the one I know he hit at least one of the 2. So Myers was another guy that had another hot bat. during the series.
A lot of hot bats in that series, and they just overwhelmed them. And what's interesting is the last time we were on, Gavin, we talked about the different setups of what we thought the projected playoffs were going to be, and we did not see that this was the matchup. We actually saw San Diego playing the Marlins.
At the time, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's definitely different than what we thought they were going to do, but I mean they've just overwhelmed the Cardinals. It was a real rock for them.
Yeah, so it wasn't overall when you think about it, it wasn't the most exciting series. It was good baseball in the second game. When you think of 11-9, that was a great game for the two. And then San Diego in that last game put up a 4 spot, and their pitching shut it out. There is some question marks. They had some issues with Clevenger and some other pitching, so we'll see if they can get that ship righted for the next series. But St. Louis is done. And by the way, that's NL Central, number 1 of 4 teams down. Let's talk about the next one. So today I brought out my Marlins helmet. I got Craig Counsell. I got the old school Marlins logo because that was the last time they were actually anything worth a while. And Craig Counsell was a star for them back in that day. The Marlins Cubs. I mean, the Cubs got swept, brother. I mean, the Cubs got swept by the Marlins.
I don't. It's one of those. Listen, I don't want to say anything, but I said that if you give the Marlins a chance, they might make it through. Now, to be honest, I thought that was against the Dodgers, against the San Diego Padres. I did not think against the Cubs they had a shot in hell. There's no way. How after what we saw out of their pitching this year and stuff, I did not think in any way, shape, or form it would be this much of a lopsided win. I mean, that was crazy.
It is. So let me read these 4 names and take a guess how many hits in 2 games they had. Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber, and Javier Baez. In an average those 2 games, how many hits did those 4 players combine for?
Combined? I mean, you would think of all those names, they would have like 10 hits at least. I mean, through it. I mean, wow.
1 hit. Javier Baez was the only guy with the hit in that series for those 4 players, which, I mean, anybody who watches baseball knows those 4 names, right? It's some of the most explosive offensive players in the league, let alone just that team. But they lose 5-1 and 2-0 to the Marlins.
They score 1 run over those 2 games, the Marlins scoring 7. I mean, that's insane.
I mean, it's unacceptable when you think in the baseball world. You just can't have them actually do that, right? So, I mean, the Marlins beat the Cubs 2-0. 5-1, 2-0, 1 hit between those 4 guys. Now, and let me ask you a question. Can you name any starters from the Marlins?
Well, I know is who got the win for the first game at Atlanta. I always say like at Antarctica, but that's not his name. It looks like
Alan Contra.
Yeah, exactly. But I honestly couldn't. Before, if I wasn't paying attention, I could not tell you at all.
That's what I mean. And so now you and I study the sport. We watch the stuff. And so it's tough because you really don't know a lot of guys. Now, I know their DH in Jesus Aguilar. He's a former Brewer who struggled mightily at the end of his time with the Brewers and went down to Miami and has done very well. A couple bench players because they all came from trades as of recent from other big-name teams when they got rid of Yelich and a few others, right? But there really hasn't really been a lot, and it's unfortunate that nobody really knows who the hell they are. No. But that's just the reality of it. But so that's, by the way, that's number 2. That is 2 NL Central teams now down, right, of the teams we've talked about.
Well, honestly, the Cubs should have known, though. You're going in there against the Marlins. We know what happens when the Cubs and the Marlins play each other, so that should have been a given. Whoever put in the I forgot the guy's name now. I feel so stupid. The guy who caused the Steve Bachman or whatever the hell his name is. Whoever did the cutout, whoever paid for the cutout in that stadium for that game, MVP. They deserve everything. So, I mean, that's just that's incredible.
That is a lot of fun when you do that sort of thing. So let's move on to the next series, and this involves another NL Central team. We're getting a trend here. For those of you watching, you're about to pick up on a trend. We have the Los Angeles Dodgers against the Brewers, and the Dodgers, of course, sweep my Brewers. Now, the Brewers really didn't have any business being in the playoffs whatsoever. They were the only playoff team under 500. They squeaked in on the last day. They had the chance to hold their own destiny in their hands. If they win, they're in. If they lose, they got to get 2 other teams to lose for them to get in. Well, they lost on the last game of the regular season, but they got the help they needed. They made it into the playoffs. Now they lost 4-2 and 3-0, which just sums up the Brewers. And I'm going to go off for a moment because this is
boy, let them go off.
the Brewers, this is them this year, right? They had good pitching, not great. They had great bullpen pitching. And then they had the most inconsistent offense I think I've ever seen come out of that organization. And they've had some bad offenses over the year. Christian Yelich batting in the low 200s, and being a former MVP, almost a multi-time MVP. He's a batting champ, and he's a guy that we've just come to know to be one of the best in the league in his time frame. So it was actually it was disheartening to watch it happen. I'm not sure he's 100% healthy from breaking his kneecap last year. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I hate to even say this. If you watched him play baseball, I've never seen him make more just kind of loafed off plays, just barely chasing a ball down, barely going at it. He didn't have the same look in his eye at the plate. I understand there's a lot going on in the world, and I'm not going to discount that, but he just didn't seem to have the same fire that we've come to expect from Christian Yelich or any previous MVP, right? We'll talk about another previous MVP in this series, and it's Mookie Betts, right? Mookie Betts put up numbers. He did what it took to put his team on his back and win those games. And Cody Bellinger didn't put up the numbers, another former MVP, but Betts did. And that's the difference between Yelich and those guys this year. Yelich could not close out games like he did before. Brewers did lose a reliever this season, right before the postseason started, so they missed out on a great reliever. But they just had no hitting. It's bad. And then you top it off. If you think about it in game one, I don't know if you watched the game, but Brent Suter walked in multiple runs. He gave up the bases loaded and walked in runs, which you just can't do in any game, especially in a playoff game. But they walked in 3 runs. They lost 4-2.
Yeah, I mean, listen, listen. They could have been competitive in game one, but as we're going to see in another series we're going to get to, Gavin, the mental game could be just as impactful as anything physical. And I think that when you get in your head that you're not going to win, it's what happens sometimes. I don't want to say that's what happened to Christian Yelich, but I completely agree with you. I saw some highlights where I'm watching and I'm like, my God, it just doesn't look like Christian Yelich. It doesn't look like that killer that we know that he could be. Also, it doesn't help you that when in the second game, you're going in there with Kershaw, who might have had the best postseason performance he's ever had in his life, in his career. I mean, what was it? It was 8 shutout innings, 13 strikeouts.
13 strikeouts.
It was, again, a mental thing of they knew they were going to have to play Kershaw the next game. They really wanted to get that game, and it feels like they just showed up to that second game like, man, come on, what are we going to do?
I'll tell you, as a Brewers fan, the one thing I look forward to about that game, too, even though it was Kershaw, if you remember a couple of years back, it was at Miller Park, it's the difference, but you had Clayton Kershaw matching him against Brandon Woodruff, who, by the way, they matched up against each other in that game. Brandon Woodruff ended up actually hitting a home run as the pitcher off of Clayton Kershaw. Now, again, that's not likely to happen. Nobody expected him to hit another bomb, but you expected that energy and that fire because the last time those two faced off in the playoffs was a game for the ages. I was at that game. It was really exciting. That was tons of fun. And the Brewers' offense came out just lackluster. Now, realistically, Woodruff only gave up 2 really bad pitches that ended up costing them that game because of those runs. But it didn't matter if he gave up 1 run or 100 runs because the Brewers didn't score any additional runs.
Nothing.
And it's sad. Brewers choke it as expected. Realistically, they shouldn't have even been in the playoffs. That was a terribly matched up game. People have been asking me, Gavin, do you think Craig Counsell is on the hot seat because of it? I say no. Because of the season we're in, because of the injuries we've had, Lorenzo Cain opting out of the season, I don't think he would have been a big difference maker when it comes to.
I was about to ask you that. How much of a difference maker are we talking, Gavin? I mean, I don't know if
the only guy in that organization that's ever won a World Series. He won it back with Kansas City. That's a leadership factor. There is a big thing when you talk about not only his physical ability to play the game, but in addition to his leadership and what he brings to the table. That question. What's up, Joshua? What's going on, buddy? Nice sweater, Cheetos. Thanks, bud. Good to see you, man. But yeah, Lorenzo Cain makes a big difference. If you think about, a lot of the guys do these things now when they get on base and the claw hands or shooting arrows or whatever. He was the only guy that's ever got that going for the Milwaukee Brewers, and he did that a couple years ago the first time, and that just energized them. He's led that team as I know it was Ryan Braun's team, and now it's Christian Yelich's team, but he was the true veteran leader. And if anybody remembers, he started his career with the Brewers before getting traded to Kansas City. So it was a big deal. It was. I felt a lot of air come out of that team when they lost Lorenzo Cain this year.
Yeah,
but again, let's not dwell on them because they sucked this year, and hopefully they can pick it up and get back. But the Dodgers moving on again. Mookie Betts playing great. They will need better games out of guys like Cody Bellinger. and a few others to make things happen. Turner didn't have a great series. Max Muncy didn't have a great series. Thankfully, they played a terrible team, and they didn't need great games from those guys, and were able to move forward with the next series. So again, Brewers, that makes 3. NL Central, 3 teams up, 3 teams down. What do you think happens here next, Nick?
Nope.
Nope. We have the Braves versus the Reds, the 4th NL Central team, and the Braves swept them as well. So that is 3 NL Central out of 4 that got swept. The Braves win 1-0 and 5-0.
Yeah, I was gonna say the big story coming out of this series is not 1 run scored by the Reds. They were proverbially shut out in 2 full games. That one game, the first game, going 13 innings, was crazy. Crazy.
Absolutely insane. I mean, Freddie Freeman stepping up and doing the thing that he should do, and that team expects him to do, and he did his job. He stepped up. He knocked in that with a single in the 13th inning to win that game. That is the type of play that you look forward to in a postseason. You look for a guy like a Freddie Freeman. You look forward to a guy, hopefully Ronald Acuna will be another guy that you watch do some great things. On other teams, the Mookie Betts making plays. Those guys you're excited to watch, and Freddie Freeman stepped up. Not the flashiest, not the most vocal star out there, but a star nonetheless, and he did his job and won that game 1-0.
Really good and fun quote from him. It was a very stressful 4.5 hours. Whatever emotions you feel, you just try to ride the wave. When it gets to the 6th, 7th, 8th innings and you're still 0-0, I think everybody's on pins and needles. That's just how it is, especially in a playoff game, and especially in a type of series format that we've never really seen before, where you're just trying to fight to survive. And that first game, as we saw in a lot of these series, the first game was the determining factor. It changes everything on how you play. So, I mean, definitely a real good showing there from Freddie, trying to, getting in that clutch hit.
What's up, Brandon? I agree. I don't know why Nick's wearing that jersey, but hey.
Why is Nick wearing that jersey? Because my Yankees are playing right now. That's why, man. You think I'm not going to have the good luck juju going just because I have some haters in the comments? I don't think so. Heather, Heather's so nice. She doesn't want to be rude. She's like, I think the Rays are going to win, but Nick, don't worry. The Yankees could win too. That's why I love Heather. She's great.
John says, I'm an Indian and Mets fan. Unfortunately, the Mets didn't qualify as usual. The Indians didn't advance beyond the wild card. I've gotten into baseball due to
No, they didn't.
I've been listening to some true baseball fans, especially. What's up, John? Thanks for checking this out, man. I appreciate it. We're going to jump into the National League stuff here in just a minute. We'll get to your other question, but just wanted to make sure I pop that up. So to finish off what we talked about in the Braves game, Bauer. I feel bad for Bauer because he ended up putting up a great game himself. He pitched 7 2/3, had 12 Ks, but ended up losing that first game. He doesn't get the loss, sorry, but they end up losing after a great starting pitching performance because it went to extras. They just couldn't hold it. But then, the Reds, they hurt themselves. So while Bauer had 12 Ks, in the 2 games combined, the Reds struck out 28 times in 2 games. You can't put up 28 strikeouts in the bad column against yourself and expect to win any games, any long-term games, in my opinion. And it showed. They put up zeros in both games. I mean, it's just not something you can afford to do.
No.
And on the flip side, Acuna goes 3 for 5 between the 2 games, has only 1 RBI, but he's the one that sparked that win and that 5-0 victory in the second game. So the guys that you expect, the batters doing what you expect. Bauer did what you would hope from him, but they didn't get any help and didn't end up finishing that game off. So Braves sweep the Reds 2 games to nothing, and they move on.
Yes, they do.
So we got the American League to jump to. Now, we'll get to your team second just because I was going alphabetically, and that means
I know where you're going first.
The A's pop up here, and we got the A's beating out the White Sox, which kills me because now both my World Series teams that I picked to go end up losing. I picked the Cardinals, and I picked the White Sox to make it. Nick, they disappointed me, man. The White Sox didn't make it happen against the A's.
They did not, but I mean, can you deny the A's with their pitching? I mean, with everything they were able to accomplish, they were able to stunt the power that we know comes from the White Sox. Definitely a disappointment. I thought they would have gone a lot further. I did think they'd make it out, but with the matchup that they had, I mean, the Athletics have just been awesome this season, and they just continue to do what they do well. They did go down in the first game, though, and you kind of, again, if you're going off of what the theme was for most of the wild card series games, it had it that the most teams who won the first game, they ended up winning. So
right.
you were getting a little nervous there. Didn't happen for them, though, thankfully, and they were able to win.
Yeah, it was a shocking game, shocking games for me. I was very disappointed. Like you said, that offense was so good, but it just came down to the clutch at bats and the A's. The A's are they're a team to be afraid of, and at the same time, they're just I don't think they have enough firepower to go all the way. We talked about it before the playoffs happened, how they are a very good team, but they probably aren't deep enough to really make it happen. And we're going to find out what's going to happen in that next series here. But Chicago, very disappointing. As much young talent as you have there and can't make it work, especially with losing a guy and Chapman losing him for the A's. That's a big deal, and they still found a way to win against Chicago and winning. They lost first game, like you said, 4-1, but then they win 5-3 and 6-4, and then moving on. And they played a little bit earlier today. We'll discuss that game in just a couple of minutes. But let's move on to a team that you know very well. And take it away. What happened in that Yanks-Cleveland series?
Real quick, I just want to make a real point about the last series we were just talking about. I think one of the people that you really need to put a lot of blame on right now, and someone who they really need to talk to, is Dallas Keuchel. Because Dallas Keuchel in game 2, I mean, he was having a very good MLB regular season. I mean, think his regular season, looking at his numbers right now, 6-2, a 1.99 ERA, 42 strikeouts. I mean, in 11 games. I mean, it seemed like he was somebody who has the experience in the postseason, somebody you can rely on and lean on, and he just fell apart in game 2. Not good at all. So, I mean, and it segues me to my Yankees in Cleveland because Garrett Cole did exactly what Garrett Cole was supposed to do. Garrett Cole went in there and did, I mean, game 1, they make a statement, right? They just go bombs away. They win 12-3 of Garrett Cole going over, I think it was 7 innings. I mean, it was awesome work. And I think a bigger story out of that is Shane Bieber, another pitcher who was arguably the best pitcher in the American, obviously was the best pitcher in the American League.
American League Cy Young, no doubt, 100%.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and just could not hold anything. I mean, gave up 2 runs in the first, 1 in the third, 2 in the fourth, 2 in the fifth. I mean, it just became a liability for them going towards the end of that game. A part of that is experience. Again, Cole has been there before, but I mean, just when you're able to rely on somebody like that, Cole, blah blah blah. Listen. For all the joy, why is Cole worth that much? Why is it? You know why? Because of a game like that. And hopefully the game.
He finally earned it. Let's be honest. He finally earned that paycheck that he got, right? Because I was down on him during the regular season. I talked a lot of crap. I even said that he was definitely overpaid. I felt he was overrated, and I still feel that way a little bit. But he did at least step up so far in the postseason to meet his the expectations that he has. Correct?
Right.
I mean, he at least did it this time. If he can do it again, then he's going to earn his paycheck. But he's got to do it again.
Yeah, well, listen, you have to be consistent. But the fact that the Yankees know that they have someone they can lean on, that they know they have someone that they could turn to for that game 1 and not be terrified. Just like how we're talking right now with the division games, and we'll talk about the division series and our predictions on that later on in this show. But to know that you can start game 1 with Cole against Blake Snell and feel good, that's a huge advantage. It takes so much pressure off your batters. You know that you can go in there and work really good at bats and not feel pressured to make something happen. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like in basketball when you feel the need to just keep taking threes when you don't have to. So I'm very happy with how they did it. Obviously, that second game was, I mean, come on. You can't pretend that was not a lot of fun baseball there, Gavin.
That was great baseball. I mean, look at the first game. Here's my question to you, since you're the Yankees guy. Mm-hmm. The first game they won 12-3, but they hit 4 home runs.
Yep.
The second game they won 10-9 and hit 3 home runs. Right. Mm-hmm. So is the power going to sustain long enough for them to win this next series? Can they continue the power onslaught to be able to win? Because they had to, especially in that second game, 10-9, they had to put up a bunch of runs just to battle back and forth, right? So can they continue to go that way, or are they going to end up with a power shortage and end up losing the next series?
Listen, the thing is this is always a question when it comes to New York Yankees, and forever it always was. It's because you had 3 guys who were the power hitters, right? Now you have a plethora of guys that can make things happen. In game 2, it's Gio Urshela hitting the big grand slam, who's not a home run kind of guy. And what seems to happen a lot with the Yankees is that listen, Aaron Judge did not have a great series.
No, he really didn't.
LeMahieu, while getting the big hit in game 2, while getting the hit that you needed to get over, wasn't playing his best. But when you have guys like Clint Frazier stepping up, when you have guys like Gio Urshela stepping up, when you have guys like Glaber getting on base, he had the best on base percentage for the Yankees the entire 2 series so far. When you're able to when you put yourself in position to manufacture runs, I think they're going to be okay. Is it going to be every game they hit a home run? Of course not, and they're going to have to. They're not going to be able to. But I do want to put to bed the thing of, they can't hit home runs outside Yankee Stadium, because clearly that's not true. So let's just move past that. But I mean, obviously, what they can't find themselves, like you said, they have to play good baseball, contact hitting, making sure you get on base, not wasting a good at bat, not getting bad strikeouts, and just getting on base. And in that case, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you have to hit a grand slam to get out of a hole. You don't want to find yourself that you have to hit the bombs to get out of your hole.
I would agree. So and so here's another piece to that. So the Yankees move on. Cleveland loses in a sweep, and now Cleveland is faced with some craziness. They still got some decent pitching, of course. They got rid of Clevenger because some other issues. I have my feeling, and I don't think that they're going to be able to. Any chance that Francisco Lindor stays and they build around him, or is that guy gone?
I think he's gone.
I would agree.
I think he is gone. I think he's going to go somewhere else to be, and have a very nice career somewhere else. I really do not see him at all staying with Cleveland.
I don't see him in a Cleveland uniform beyond the offseason as well. So
I agree.
So we won't show, Daniel, I appreciate your comment. I won't show the just because of the language in it, but I will show the other one. We got a Dodgers and an anti-Yankee fan, Daniel. I if it comes to that, I will root with you. I can't post your other comment just because it's a family friendly show. So
let's be friends here, man. Listen, Daniel, there's 2 guys right now on this stream, and one of them said the Dodgers are going to the World Series to play the Yankees. So let's be the friend of the enemy and wherever it's supposed to be, and let's get there, brother. Come on.
All right, so that's the Yankees. Cleveland, again, like I said, Yankees move on in a sweep. We have another sweep. Tampa Bay over Toronto. Tampa Bay ends up winning the series 2 games to 0, a 3-1 victory, and an 8-2 victory. And we talked about the name earlier. We had the Rays have 2 guys that hit very well. We had Randy Arozarena, who went 4 for 8 in the series with an RBI, and we had Manuel Margot go 3 for 7 with 3 RBIs. But the bigger story is Toronto's young stars, Biggio, Bichette, and Vlad, had 2 hits combined between 2 games and just disappeared.
Just went silent, Gavin. And again, is that a case of simply of just the nerves of not really being in a spot like this, knowing that you can't afford to lose a game? I mean, maybe. I mean, and I think again, it goes back to the mental. When you feel like your back's against the wall, it's either you rise up or you don't.
Or you don't.
And I think listen, these are very talented guys. They're going to have great careers. They're going to be in more spots, especially as this Toronto team starts to build a little bit more and they become a lot more of an offensive nightmare for teams and a pitching nightmare for teams. They're going to do great things. But I think when they were in there, it just felt like, especially with how well Tampa has been doing this season, when you have Blake Snell, obviously, and you have Glasgow, I think, pitched the second game. Glasnow pitched the second game. I mean, when you have those guys to go up against, it's very, very difficult. But
Glasnow gave up the 2 runs, and they just found a way to put him on their back and score 8 to back him up. So Glasnow didn't even have to have a great game in order for them to win. He just had to pitch halfway decent, and they won their game. But I agree with you. I think there is something to the fact that these young players were not ready for the big spotlight. I don't think they were ready for that win or go home mentality. But the good news is for them, this is big for them, right? They have a chance to now have that postseason experience and take this and flourish with it, right? Absolutely. I think this is something that will do them great in the future, even though it was a bit of a sad ending for them to this season. But the Toronto, the other part, their pen was good in game 1. Their starter was, it was what really cost them, though. They just didn't have the pitching. When you give up 8 runs in that second game, is just not going to get the job done, unfortunately.
No, it's not.
So let's move right along. We got Astros versus Twins. I know Brandon's been waiting for this one. The Twins lose by a sweep, and they have now lost 18 consecutive postseason games. That's not good.
I mean, you know,
we're doing that.
Game 1 was a disaster there. You're winning the game 1-0. You're winning the game. It's tied, and they end up, you know, blowing three. Or it's tied. Excuse me, it was tied, and then they give up 3 runs in the 9th like that. I mean, really, really, really heartbreaking. And again, I think it became mental, Gavin. I think they lost that game, and they just felt that, well, we're supposed to lose the second game, and that's what happened. I mean,
right, I would agree.
I mean, it's getting to a point with the Twins. I mean, it's getting crazy. They haven't won. They haven't since 2004. They have not won a playoff game, Gavin.
That's bad. And here's the other part. So I'm looking at my stats as we speak right here. Here's another thing that's not good. Now, I said that I didn't believe the Stros had a chance to go deep for a couple of reasons. Their stars aren't playing like stars, and their stars weren't playing like stars, and yet they still found a way to go. And I'm looking at the stats as we speak. Springer was 1 for 6. Altuve, 0 for 7. You had Bregman, 1 for 7. Correa played well at 3 for 6. But the guys that won them their series were Michael Brantley and Tucker. Those guys had all the RBIs. Those are the guys that stepped up and won that game for them. But the Astros found a way to win again without their core 4 guys to do anything for them. I mean, that is scary news for the MLB when it comes to the fact that the Astros are winning with their number 2 guys being the ones that are doing the work, right?
Yeah, I mean they're on that let's show the haters train right now, and
that's not good for the rest of baseball, right?
No, it's really not. I mean, it's not good for us of baseball. It's not everybody. Listen, it's one of those things when you know you're hated by everybody, and it just gives you that fire. And again, it's what separates great players from good players. We talked about this in one of our first episodes, in one of our early episodes, when they were, you know, they were like almost in last place, and we said, listen, these are great players. They're going to get their heads on straight. They're just trying to wrap their heads around everything. And they figured it out. Now, they are a below 500 baseball team, and I still think that the Twins should have knocked them, but they're here now.
I couldn't believe that they didn't at least take it to a 3rd game, to be totally honest. I could not believe that they didn't, with all that firepower that they have, and, you know, they got great players in Buxton. You think about the season that Nelson Cruz has had, and Brandon, I know I'm tearing you apart on this one, but
what more can Nelson Cruz do for them? Honestly.
I mean, he did everything you asked for. He did everything you could hope for, and they still didn't find a way to win. And that is, it's really disappointing, obviously, for them, you know?
100%. No, I mean, and again, I think it all comes down to that first game, Gavin, when you fall apart in the 9th inning. I think the Astros just had so much momentum going for them. They had such a good feeling going into the second game that it was just too much to overcome for the Twins.
And the Astros have actually already played their game today. We'll get to that in just a minute. But Nick, we'll finish up some of our thoughts on the wild card series first. Now, you threw out the question. I think we're both going to agree on this, is who was our surprise team? And I think it's a dual combination of surprise teams, but I'll let you go first.
I think the Marlins, no question about it. And I think the Astros, 2 teams I did not see coming. Now, I thought the Astros would be competitive, don't get me wrong, but I thought at least a game 3. Did not see them sweeping the Twins. And the Marlins, to me, was just, I cannot believe what I'm watching right now. I couldn't either. Could not believe, after everything we've seen from you, Darvish, after everybody who we know on that team, the talent that the Cubs have, I could not believe that's how it ended up playing out.
Well, how about the fact that they were a miracle to get into the postseason? No one's heard of 3/4 of that roster. They had all the issues with COVID earlier in the season. People were calling for the team to get thrown out for the season. Figure all those things. They find and scrape their way into the postseason. They face up against the Cubs, who are one of the best teams in baseball all year long. And they find a way to end up winning that game when they really shouldn't have, right? They just shouldn't have won that. But my other surprise team then goes, and I double up and I say the Cubs were my surprise team. There is no way that anybody expected the Cubs to get swept. Even if you thought that maybe the Marlins would win, there's nobody out there that predicted a sweep of the Cubs by the Marlins. That's my 2 kind of the surprise team is essentially one and the same, but couldn't beat that. I mean, they held the Cubs to 1 run in 2 games.
But it's embarrassing. I mean, the 3 names, I mean, you said them before, who's there. How is it possible that they get held to 1 run, to 1 hit? I mean, come on, man. Can't do
of those
that.
4 primary hitters, somebody should have been able to hit at least a home run or 2.
Or I mean, just have competitive at bats. Have
And they
something.
really didn't.
It's come on. It's very, 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 very frustrating. I mean,
All right, moving on. We have I went a little further. I didn't tell Nick I was going to do this, but we talked about choosing our MVPs for the American League, National League for the wild card round. So Nick, I'll let you jump in first. National League, who were you running with? Who was your guy for the National League?
National League, I mean, I have to give it to Tatis Jr., man. I mean, just he is one of those guys that, people were saying, he had a great regular season, but it's a weird regular season. Is it going to translate to the playoffs? Is he going to be able to come through in big moments? Yes and yes. Translates, continues to be the great player, and in clutch moments got the big hit. He's a star in the making. People say, "Oh, he's a he's the coal that they can turn into a diamond." I think he's a diamond right now. I think he's insanely talented, and to me, National League, he's the MVP, no questions asked.
I would agree. I mean, like you said, when you're batting .444 with the multiple home runs, 5 RBIs to lead that team, there is nobody else in the National League to choose other than that. Now, again, like I said, I went a little further. I didn't tell you I was going to do this, so sorry about that.
He's always got to show me up, guys. Always got to show me up.
I decided to pick my best pitcher of that, and I think it goes to Clayton Kershaw. 8 innings pitched, 0 runs, 13 strikeouts. And I know the Brewers were not great this season, but there is still a lot of firepower on the team. You still had Braun did not play in that game, but in that team, you had Braun in game 1. You had Yelich. You still got a bunch of good ball players on that team. And to put up 13 Ks and give up no runs was good. So I'm with you on Tatis. I also threw in Kershaw as my best pitcher. For the American League, I'm going to say it first just because so I don't sound like a bandwagoner behind you. I had to give for me, just because of some of the clutch nature of it, I went to Gio Urshela for the batter, batting .333 with the home run, but also the 5 RBIs. But it wasn't just 5 RBIs. It was the clutch time frame. It was the necessary time in which he did it. Heather Young has a good point, and you could have, in the National League, you could have said Freddie Freeman, but he was only clutch in 1 game versus multiple. That's the only reason, because Freddie was towards the top of my list. But you also had Acuna come up big in the second game instead of Freddie. That's the only reason. But I agree. I love Freddie Freeman. The guy's phenomenal. So Gio Urshela, and then my pitcher was Garrett Cole. So I'll get my Yankees fandom out of the way because I can't stand them. But I'm you, American League best player for the wild card round for you.
I mean, listen, I think Gio gets it not only for his offensive, but his defense. I mean, what he was able to do in that 9th inning when they had given up the go-ahead, the tying run, they have to now make it happen. They have to shut this inning down before it gets out of hand. I think it was actually the 8th inning, excuse me. He makes an insane double play. I mean, getting the ball behind him, throwing it across from the seat, and being able to get to second and first. I mean, just you can't hate it. I mean, you got it. The only person who probably hates it is the former runner-up for the Rookie of the Year. But besides that, I mean, you gotta love him. So I agree with you 100%. Gio Urshela was my MVP for the American League.
So that kind of wraps up the wild card round. So we're going to jump into move on to the next round here, and it's going to get interesting here in the division series. Now the Astros are going to face the A's, 2 teams that have been solid on the offensive side. We're getting a little questionable on the pitching side, but we have Lance McCullers versus Bassett. Bassett was almost my American League pitcher pick, but Garrett Cole ended up having more strikeouts and against, I think, a better team, so I went that direction with him. And they already played today, Nick. And how did that finish up for us?
Well, I mean, listen, they were leading going into the 6th inning, up 5-3, and then it's completely imploded in the 6th inning. I think giving up 5 runs, and the last score was 10-5. I mean, oof, not a good start for the A's, Gavin.
No, and again, we talked about the Astros being that team that you don't want to give them too much time because they are a good team. They do have great players in that program, and if you give them too much wiggle, you give them too much leeway, they're going to take it because they've been there, done that. And I know the whole cheating scandal and all that stuff, and I get that. But in the real world, you still have to swing the bat, and they still have to put up numbers. They ended up with, that was 16 hits in that game, which is unreal, the number of hits. And you look at, we talked about some of those players. Let's talk about George Springer today. He went 4 for 5 after having no hits in the first round. 4 for 5 with an RBI. Jose Altuve, 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Brantley stayed hot. Bregman went 2 for 4 with an RBI. And Correa finished up strong at 3 for 5. So look what just happened. We talked about how you don't want to give these guys a chance to get deep in the playoffs. You don't want to give them a chance to get hot. And while they've been bad for most of the time, those 4 guys all got hot today, and they end up beating the Astros, who are, of course are missing Chapman right now at third base. But nobody else in their lineup really did it. I mean, Trevor Siemian did well at 2 for 4 today. Chris Davis 2 for 4, but he also struck out twice. The guy strikes out as much as he hits. We all know that. But we gave Houston too many chances, man. And watch now it's time to get hot. Where do you think we go from here? I mean, do they end up winning?
The history of best of five postseason series has it that the winner of game 1 has gone on to take the series 98 of 136 times. That's a 72% favor for the teams that get the first game. Now, listen, anything's possible, obviously, Gavin, but I just don't know. I mean, this, like we said, game 1 is your best. And if their best can't beat like we said, the not B, I wouldn't say the B squad of the Astros at all, but the B plus squad maybe, that's not great. I don't think it's going to be a sweep of any kind. I think it's going to go 4 games, but I do think that the Astros might be able to pull out a win out of this series.
Brandon's throwing up his thoughts. A's versus Rays. He thinks the A's are going to come back and then slam Diego versus the Marlins. We got Heather throwing out there New York versus the Astros. She feels, I have a feeling, I'm leaning towards the way Heather's going on that. I think that with Houston playing the way that they are, you've now awoken the bees. You've now given Springer, Altuve, Bregman, and Correa a chance to get a feel of what it was like to get multiple hits in a game, get multiple RBIs again in a game. And I think you've now, again, awakened the beast. And yes, I understood they cheated. I'm not going to discount that, but you still have to be good enough to get to that level. They didn't all 4 cheat their way to the major league. So they're all very, very talented baseball players. And I think we're about to see those guys come out of their shell. And it was a bad thing that they were allowed to win, like you said, win game 1. So over 70% of the time they end up winning the series. So
when you smell blood in the water, Gavin, you go for it. So that's what happens.
So I think the Astros will end up rolling this one onto a victory. I'm going to throw that out there. I think the A's end up losing in a 5-game series. I still think this will go 5 games, but I think Astros will end up winning the whole thing, winning that series there.
Okay.
We got a good series next after that, and I know this one interests you quite a bit, but we've already had pitchers announced, and the game is already going on. Let me pull up the box.
Yes, they are. I'm watching it right now, sir.
It's 1-1 in the bottom of the second. We got Tampa Bay versus New York. You got Blake Snell versus Garrett Cole. That's a darn good matchup. That is going to be some good baseball. They've each given up a run, so it's essentially like going zeros again. This is going to be a fun game to watch. I still think, regardless of the way this game comes out, I think the Yankees have too much firepower. I think the Yankees are going to go on and win this series.
Listen, what we know about both of these teams is the key to win is strike early, and that's exactly what the Yankees are trying to do here. And that's just exactly what Tampa Bay is trying to do right here. Get Cole, get Snell off the mound as soon as humanly possible. And as we saw how they were able to perform in the wild card series, you do not want to keep them on there as much as you possibly can. So I think that both teams are great. I do agree with you, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a Yankees boy. I think the Yankees, just top to bottom, have a better hitting squad. I'm not going to say power. I'm not going to say home runs. I'm saying people that can work really good at bats. I think the Yankees just have the advantage. And at the end of the day, if you can work good at bats, you're going to win baseball games. As great as your pitching can be.
I agree with you. I think they have a more complete lineup, but at the same time, you do have to watch out for the Rays. The Rays, They don't win World Series, but they find ways to win games in the postseason, which is why I don't think they'll win the series, but I think they'll stretch it out to a full series. I don't think this is going to be a sweep. I don't think it's going to be
no way.
Series. I think we're going to go the distance in this one. And it's going to be a late round knockout for the Yankees. I think
listen, if the Yankees fans here are hoping for the prophecy, which is going to be that they could get past the demon that was on their shoulder, which was the Rays in the regular season. If in the fantasy land of a New York Yankee fan, it's they win this series, they play the Astros, get the revenge in the championship series, and then they go play the game that everybody who's a Yankee and Dodger fan wants, that nobody else wants, is their World Series, and they win that to win the 28th.
I mean, that would be poetic justice. I mean, let's just be honest.
It would be. So, I mean, listen, it's a difference. We were just talking about it before. The mental game. They could not go into this game going, man, this is the team that's had our number. This is the team that came to Yankee Stadium and just stomped us. You can't think like that when you're in there. I think you get in your own head. Heather's saying, I think it will go to Game 5 for the Yankees. I hope you're right, Heather. I will agree the Yankees lineup is sick, no doubt about that. They have, the top of their lineup might be some of the best. DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Judge. Come on.
It's a good lineup for sure, and it'll be a fun series. The series I know Heather's been talking about and excited for, and I think baseball will be watching this one, still scratching their head a little bit. We got the Marlins versus the Braves, right?
Yes, so we do.
Got, Max Fried versus Alcantara from the Marlins, right? And that's two very good pitchers, both been at the tops of their games for both their teams. This is going to be an interesting series, and I don't want to be a homer and an obvious guy that's going to say that they're the worst team. They're not going to win. I don't think truly that the Marlins are going to win in a 5-game series against that offensive lineup that the Braves have. While maybe not quite as explosive as you see in New York, they have a ton of power themselves. They do. Freddie Freeman as a veteran player. You can't argue with one of the best young stars in Acuna. And the Marlins just will not outlast them in a 5-game series. They beat the Cubs in 3. I think if they played the Cubs in 5, I'm not sure they would have won that. It at least would have gone the 5, even though we saw them already win those 2 in a row. But I just don't think the Marlins have it. I don't think they're going to have the longevity. I don't think they have the power. I don't think they have the pitching to beat the Braves in a 5-game series. Braves
Easy,
move on.
Simple question here, Gavin. Who's a better team, the Marlins or the Reds?
On paper, the Reds are a better team.
Right? So on paper, the Reds are a better team. Now, they didn't play. Listen, anybody can play anything on any given day, right? Obviously. Right. But this is a Reds team, Joey Votto, a lot of power, a lot of talent on this team. Handled them. And
the Braves they ended up winning the game when you still get a performance from Trevor Bauer, who had 7 2/3 innings with 12 strikeouts, and they still end up losing that game. It did go to extras to get there. But if you're going to take Trevor Bauer on a game like that and still find a way to beat the team that he's pitching for, you're in good shape.
You're feeling good. And my point that I was just making is there's no way that you can pretend if the Marlins were in that position, they're having competitive games. It's just not possible. They're going to get crushed. I firmly believe this is a sweep. I think it's going to be a 3-game sweep. The Cinderella story is over. You're against a team that is just way too good. I think it's one of those situations where you just caught the Cubs in a bad way. They were already having performance issues from their top stars in the regular season too. We knew that going into this. We knew that Davey and Schwarber were having problems, so that we reported about that. So I think you just caught them on a bad series. But the Braves are not those guys. They are
very true.
Prime right now where they are. They're feeling good. I think it's going to be a 3-game sweep.
But my favorite thing about baseball is the phrase, any day, anything can happen. And it's no more true than it is in baseball, than any other sport. I know we watch upsets in football. I know we see stuff in basketball. And that's one of the cool parts about sports other than football, where it's a series, like in the NBA, obviously, and in the NHL, there's a series where it ends up leveling itself out. But that's one of the great parts. The Marlins, I think they'll end up winning 1 game just because of the way they're playing, the hype they're going to be at. They're going to win, I think, 1 game. But then I think they end up falling off and they end up losing. I think, obviously, the Braves will move on. But who knows? Maybe we're going to see. I don't think anybody really thought the Marlins the last time they won a World Series were going to be champions.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you do that.
Watch it be the Marlins and the Astros. You just never know. But the series nobody wants to see. In reality, the Braves will move on.
What could be a more unlikable World Series matchup? Yankees-Dodgers or Astros-Marlins?
I would rather watch Yankees-Dodgers than Marlins-Astros. And normally I'm all for the underdog. At the end of the day, the quality of baseball that I think we would see. First of all, nobody wants to see the Astros win the World Series this time, right? Nobody wants to see it. So whatever it takes to not have that matchup.
Please.
But could you imagine the memes that would happen on Facebook if the Marlins and Astros ended up playing? It would be just relentless and just.
It would just mean that the Astros are better at cheating than we ever thought. They don't help themselves win; they just make other people lose somehow.
Exactly.
A major coup would have had to happen. I'm enjoying the memes already for it's like us Yankee fans as we're like, oh man, Derek Jeter just wins anywhere he goes, huh? But that's besides the point.
There is something, and the funny part is we were all, myself and Curly, were crucifying the man before the season for some of the most ridiculous moves I think I've ever seen in baseball, and they ended up finding a way to make it work this season. So Derek Jeter finds a way to be great, like I said, no matter where he goes. But Nick, there's one series, and I saved it for the last for a reason.
Oh,
this series is probably going to be the most intriguing of all of the Division Series games that we're going to watch. And it's San Diego versus the Dodgers, right? Or as Brandon would call them, Slam Diego. These guys are just pounding the ball, almost at the level that you saw the Yankees doing, right? Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, Eric Hosmer, Will Myers is playing well lately. I mean, that's a lot of firepower on that team, and they're going up against the Dodgers. In Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, Cody Bellinger, Turner, Muncy, all those guys. I mean, that is a ton of power on both sides of that field. How is this going to work out? Where is this going to go?
I feel terrible to say it like this, Gavin, because I wish I could be a little bit more of help, but I don't know. I mean, this is to me. I mean, I do think at the end of the day, the pitching of the Dodgers is better. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, that wins you series. And I think that in the long run, I mean, I do think that the Dodgers are a better team, but I don't think the Dodgers have seen people like Tatis Jr. I don't think they've seen it. I think Manny Machado is just seething and just foaming at the mouth at an opportunity to to get to a World Series, to get to a championship series. I don't know how they're going to be able to hold them off so easily. This is not going to be a sweep of any kind. It's not going to be a quick series. This is going to go all the way. It's going to go the 5 games. And if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say Dodgers, but I'm not confident on that. I'm really not confident on that. This to me can go either way.
I say it's going to be Dodgers in 5 games. Dodgers in 5 games, and here's the reason why. What it comes down to is this is the best Dodgers team we have seen in a very long time. They've had very good teams. They've made it, they've a long ways. They've been to the postseason every year for however many years in a row now, and that is a great team. San Diego is hot. They got Tatis Jr. They got all that excitement, right? And I get it. But to your point, they are not as strong on the mound. They are not going to be able to go the distance against that team. And right now, we don't even have a game 1 starter listed for them because they're not sure who's going to be able to go. Clevenger, they made the trade for from Cleveland, who's been pitching great this season, is a question mark if he'll even be able to pitch in this round. He might not. It's not known. And when you think about it, you look at the team. You got Walker Buehler in game 1. You got Clayton Kershaw in game 2. Those should be 2 wins. I don't care how good the San Diego lineup is. I don't care if it's a 10 runs to 9 runs game. You have those 2 pitchers. You got Kenley Jansen at the back part of the pen. You got Urias, the guy coming out of the pen. They are too stacked. LA is going to win this game, and unfortunately, I think it's going to end up in a fashion where the Yankees and the Dodgers are going to face each other, and we're going to see 2 powerhouses against each other. There's going to be another series in between. I get that, but the Dodgers are just too good. And I mean, I understand the Brewers aren't that great. The Brewers have great pitching and terrible bats. They put up runs on good pitching, and they held good, okay bats, inconsistent bats to basically nothing. I think the Dodgers win the series in 5.
It's definitely not a hot take to say that they're an amazing team. And like you said, this is the best Dodgers team we've seen in a while. I think that they're better right now than they were the last 2 times they went to the World Series. I mean, I think that that's a fact. I think that, listen, like I said before I even made my prediction, as a whole, they are a better team. But I just don't know. I think that the Padres are just riding a wave of adrenaline right now that they feel that they feel invincible, man. Tatis Jr. feels like he's going to go win a ring. So,
and he should. He needs to keep that energy. That's part of what makes him so great is that he not only hits the ball well, he not only plays the field well, but he plays with such an intensity that the other players around him feed off that, right? And I know he's a young player, and you got guys like Eric Hosmer and Manny Machado there, but the physical leader of that team is Tatis Jr., so he needs to ride that energy throughout this series to give them a shot at all.
Absolutely.
We saw what happened to them last year when he got hurt. They were nothing. They weren't a great team last year, but without him being around, even in that first season with them, they just weren't the same team. So he is a pivotal point. Even if he doesn't even if let's say he goes 0 for in the series, but if he comes with that energy and he's playing hard and that defense is there, he brings something to that team that no one else is going to bring to them. And I think it's very important for him to have a very high energy series.
No, 100%. I mean, he, like you just said, is the physical, but also just the like, I don't want to say spiritual. That's a weird way to put it, but just the energy.
I get what you're saying, though.
He is the culture right now of the Dodgers. He is led. He is shaped by the veterans around him, but he is the energy. He is the diamond at the crown of this team right now, and they love him for it. So if he can keep that intensity, and like you said, you have to have that. You have to feel like you can break down walls. You have to feel like, Dodgers, who cares? We're going to beat the crap out of them. That's how you have to go into this game. You have to be bigger.
Yeah, you have to have that. I mean, that's like you said, we talked about before. The great part about baseball is any given day, anything can happen. And that's what the Dodgers are hoping for. That's what the Marlins are hoping for. And then the other two games, I think, are a little bit more evenly stacked across the way. So I think we're both, like I said, I'm going with the next series. We're going to see the Dodgers versus the Braves, and we're going to see the Yankees versus the Stros. That's my 4 teams moving on.
Man, oh man! I mean, I have to say, listen, I'm not going to not root for my Yankees. I'm going to say Yankees, Stros, Braves, and Dodgers. I mean, I think that's the safe one. I mean, that's going to be a great one. That's going to be 2 great series. LA and Braves is going to be awesome if we get that, man. That's going to be fun.
Absolutely. So, any final thoughts before we send the world back into it? I know football is on tonight. We got the weird doubleheader going on, and keep in mind we'll talk about some more of that later. But any final thoughts for us, Nick?
No, I mean, listen, I think we had a really good conversation here. I want to thank everybody for their first timers, whether this is their 100th time or 10th time, actually, because this is our 10th episode. Gavin, 10 episodes we get to, man. We're We're just moving along, man. Look at us, just leading the charge on Mondays. We make Mondays fun, I think. But guys, what I will tell you is that the rest of the week is a lot of fun too. So if you like what you got from me and Gavin tonight, I encourage you to go like the Game Changer Sports Network and check out all the great programming we have on for you for the rest of the week. Tomorrow we got from 8 to 9, we got the 60-yard dash talking about a really crazy week in the NFL.
Okay.
We got to talk about, of course, on Wednesday is for wrestling. You know that me, Martin, Jake, Mike, sometimes when he decides to show up, we'll have our squared circle talk. We have to talk about NXT TakeOver, the insane event that was this past weekend. And then on Thursday, we have the double header. We have Inside the Ice, and we have Behind the Basket. And of course, the weekend, we got our friend over at Talk Interference Sports, and we got our man Gavin right here to round out you out on Sunday. Come on.
So on Sunday, Nick, we got something a little different going on. We've been doing some fantasy football Sunday mornings.
Tell me more.
So we're going to continue to do that. And this week, we're going to have a 4-man roundtable for fantasy. We're going to go the full hour. I got Jake joining us, probably Shane and at least one other. We're trying to figure out the final. But on Sunday, we will have an even larger fantasy football focus. And we're going to talk a little bit because we are going to have some craziness, obviously, with everything that's happened this week. We're going to wait and find out what happened to the Tennessee Titans. And obviously, we're watching, the game between Kansas City and New England's going on as we speak before the regular game. So check everything out. And again, Sunday, watch for a third in a row special edition of Circus Monkey Sports on Sunday.
Well, Gavin, you're telling me if you're a guy who likes his fantasy football, you got to watch Sunday then. He's going to tell you who you have to go with, telling you what the direction to go with there and the players to pick. So it's a must-see show on Sunday, Gavin, it sounds like.
I think they're all must-see show, but I'm a little biased, so you can't take my word for it. Come and check it out. Let us know what you think. One of the great parts we do on Sunday, not only do I give you my thoughts, my feelings, and the reasons why I feel that way. It's not just my opinions. I go through the numbers, but you post in the comments. Let us know what you have questions about. Hey, who should I start, this or that? And then we have myself and at least a couple other people giving you the reasons why we would go, which direction we would go, and then you make your decision from there. So tune in on Sunday. But with that, Nick, let's give everybody their evening back. Let's go check out some football. Everyone have a great evening, and we will see you all soon.
Go Yankees!